Hello, I'm Deacon John, and I want to tell you a story, our story. Imagine, if you will, massive accordion doors on that wall, and pushing back those doors reveals a small sanctuary with seating overflowing into the gym. That was the first sanctuary of St. Joseph Catholic Church. But our story doesn't begin here.
It starts in 1960, anticipating the population growth that would occur in North Dallas County, and with an eye toward future expansion, the Diocese of Dallas purchased a 15-acre plot of land in the 600 block of Jupiter Road, just inside the Richardson city limits. 16 years later, it was time to translate that vision into action. In early May of 1976, Bishop Tom Sheppy announced the formation of a new parish for the Richardson-Garland area. In a letter dated May 27th of that year, Father Patrick J. Lynch, the newly named pastor of the parish, invited the Catholic families of Richardson and Garland to attend a June 2nd meeting to be held in the cafeteria of Spring Ridge Elementary School, 2 blocks west of the parish's future home. Among the items to be discussed at this meeting was what to name the new parish.
And several of the parishioners came up with several names, and then all of a sudden Father Lynch says, "We're going to name it St. Joseph."
Because?
Because that was his middle name.
That was probably the first thing he did that was memorable and a good decision.
Oh yeah, it definitely was a good decision.
Starting with Mass on June 6th for the next 2+ years, St. Joseph called the cafetorium of Spring Ridge Elementary home.
It was nice. Everybody was excited about the new experience, to be on the ground floor, charter members of a new parish. My parents were charter members at St. Thomas Aquinas, so I was very excited to have that same experience.
It was a temporary thing. The altar, the seating, all had to be set up separately from the environment that we were in.
Other thing that was nice about starting from scratch like we did, and not very many people get to do that, was that we basically became a family. For many years, it was like one big family. After about 6 or 8 months of taking up and putting down all these cables for the microphones and what have you, evidently we got the cables in such a mess that one Saturday when I was setting up the sound system and I turned on the amplifier, we're picking up a radio station. So that for that Saturday evening Mass, we had no sound.
But it was a start, and it was during those 2 years that the plans were drawn up for a more permanent place to call home.
And when we decided to, what we were going to build, the decision was made, rather than build a big sanctuary, not knowing, how many families we're going to end up with, let's build a multi-purpose building, a building that where we can hold Mass in, we can, play in, we can educate our children in. So that's how we ended up with our first building on the property.
Well, first of all, it was a 2-story affair. There were classrooms upstairs. One of my favorite stories is when they were planning building that all-purpose building, I noticed that there were no bathrooms upstairs. And that's where the littlest kids, for some reason, they were going to bring the littlest kids upstairs. And I told Father Lynch, I said, "Father Lynch, you need to really think about that one, because First of all, I don't think you would have to think too long or too hard, because the fire department's going to have something to say about this. And you've got all these little kids with short legs going up and down stairs to try to get to the next bathroom.
Ground was broken June 12, 1977, for the first permanent structure of the new parish, its parish center. The two-story tilt-up concrete structure included a sanctuary, a gym, religious education classrooms, and a kitchen. After a little over a year of construction, the first Mass in the new center was held on October 14, 1978. Bishop Sheppy then celebrated a dedication Mass 1 week later.
Well, the first Saturday that we had a Mass in the new building, the people came out of the woodwork. It was like crazy. I mean, we had probably that first Saturday Mass, rather than the 200, we probably had over 500 people show up for that, and it just kept going. Then once we had a church, people started coming that didn't come when we were holding Mass in the school.
It was a surprise. It really was. We were not expecting it.
The new sanctuary was a wonderful experience for those of us that had to attend Mass at the school. It was temporary. Everyone knew that it was temporary, but I think everyone really, really enjoyed it. Being able to go to an environment that was really made for what was going on.
Yes, the multi-purpose building, it was just the dining hall, which is where the altar was built. And Father Lynch was saying, which was our first pastor, our founding pastor, he was saying Mass in the dining hall, and it went into the gym, so the two were there, yeah. And we were putting up folding chairs. We always had to get ready for Mass, so Saturday we volunteered to start putting up chairs.
Father Lynch he was a great manager and knew how to spend money, which he didn't spend. But yeah, he was very frugal, and he believed in volunteers. So which was a good concept, because I think it made the parish more like a family, because we were all involved.
I don't know that we ever had a challenge for volunteers, because people were so generous with their time and their talents, because they were excited about this new church. And I think it's still that way.
So yeah, I think St. Joseph has always been a very strong community, so I think that's the beauty of St. Joseph, and I think that's why I like it so much. I can't imagine being anywhere else.
Indeed, that sense of community and family was one of the overriding characteristics of the early St. Joseph community, a trait that carries on to this day. Deacon Randy Engel remembers that sense of welcoming.
Oh my, yes. Oh my, yes. And I met one of our first parishioners the day after I was introduced. I was shopping in the local market, and Gloria and Isaac Sandoval came up to me and said, "Aren't you the new deacon?" I said, "Yes, guilty." But you know, what that did was provide for me an understanding of the church's role in our community, and that having people there that were my kind of folks was kind of wonderful.
In May of 1981, with the parish up and running, it was time for Father Lynch and the building committee to consider building the community's main sanctuary.
Yeah, I was on the building committee when we decided to build the church. And luckily, and I guess it was St. Joseph looking over our shoulders, but it turned out that the time we decided that it was time to build the sanctuary, that it was a drought for the architects. We had over 10 architects contact us to design the building. Before that, we had already put together a program of what we wanted. But yeah, we went around to different churches and then took inputs from the parishioners. And the big thing that we got from the parishioners is that they wanted a typical church, with the altar up front and and pews and everything like the classical churches that were built back in the early years. So, and that's kind of what we put in our program that we gave to all these architects.
In April of 1983, it was announced that Fisher and Spillman were chosen as the architectural firm to design the new sanctuary and associated structures, with groundbreaking occurring a little over a year later.
Anyway, like I said, we've been to every event that was important to our parish. And watching the church building rise up from the ground was very special.
Construction of the new sanctuary was completed in February of 1986. The design of the new church incorporated modern and traditional aesthetics while winning 2 architectural awards.
I walked in the church and walked through the narthex into the church, and the ceiling kept rising and rising and rising, and I said, this is a church. This is really a church.
And at the sanctuary, it was quite different. It looked quite different. And I think I was looking around more to see if I, just to check out every crook and cranny inside in the church. But yeah, I felt like that was good. We finally had a building that we could call a church.
But the new sanctuary was not without a few peculiarities.
Okay, so in the sanctuary, we had a chandelier. And when you walked in, the first thing that came to mind was do 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 do. It was kind of like that. It was just like a spaceship. It was just strange.
Chandelier. I mean, because that's the first thing you saw, just hanging over the entire congregation, and the cross.
The other thing is the architect company that designed it were all they weren't Catholics, so the concept, one of the things that we did end up with is the ambo in the original church was this huge ambo, which you see in the Protestant churches.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was, it was like you had to step and walk into it and then do the readings.
After having started and then shepherded the parish for 19 years, in March of 1995, Father Lynch announced his retirement from St. Joseph. He was succeeded by an energetic Father Don Fisher, who wasted no time putting his imprint on his new parish.
He loved to build. In fact, he wasn't there, I bet he wasn't there
A month.
A month or two, and he's renovating the rectory.
He was an artsy fella. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I think did he have a degree in art?
I think he did.
But very into art and fine things. And he was experienced. He had experience renovating, I guess, at other places.
Oh, yeah.
Not only was now Monsignor Don Fisher experienced at renovating, he knew just where he wanted to start.
And so Father Don called me and said, I've got a crucifix I'd like you to paint. Oh, okay. That was it. And so we started. And I told Father Don I'd love to do that. He said, but and his motto was the Arezzo Cimabue crucifix, which is pre-early Renaissance. Right? And he said he wanted something like this for his church. He had just gotten St. Joseph's Catholic Church of Richardson. And I said, well, I'm not a monk. I'm a modern artist. I can't write. You write icons. You don't paint them, you write them. And I said, I'm just a modern artist. I could make a modern version of what that was, but I won't do a reproduction copying what was done. But I will do a modern version for a modern church with modern people, something to talk to them. And he said, all right.
I thought, because they were so different from what we had before, I thought they were amazing. I really did. I thought they were amazing. I love art. I wish I could have a lot more art in my house, but I don't. But I think it was absolutely beautiful, yeah.
Oh, well, it was different. I've never seen one like that, and I thought it was beautiful. It was just, I liked it.
And we have been to several churches in Rome, and it is really patterned after the style of the crucifixes in a lot of the churches in Rome. So I think that was the goal, and I think they hit the nail on the head.
And when I look at that crucifix, it becomes alive, and it really, I'm hard to focus. And when I look at this crucifix, I get really focused to it. I don't know, it just puts me in more of a religious mode because it is so, it's hard to describe. It becomes alive to me.
While the iconographic crucifix has become the defining emblem of our parish, Monsignor Don felt he needed to transform the 9-year-old sanctuary to be more in line with the directives from Vatican II. This effort resulted in Monsignor Don commissioning Ms. Riebel to provide backgrounds for the statues of the Virgin Mary and St. Joseph, as well as depictions of the Stations of the Cross.
And there were numbers where the Stations of the Cross were, and Father Don said, I want to get sanctuary in here. I wanted to feel like other. And the numbers there, one kid said, yeah, we sit in section 3, like a football game. Now we want to know this is the third in the Stations of the Cross. That's not section 3. We want to change the spirit of sanctuary in here.
He was really involved in the design and preparation and aiding the contractors and getting through it. And it was really, a lot of it was his vision.
Changing that spirit of sanctuary meant removing the oversized ambo and mothership chandelier and adding a door.
I thank God for Monsignor Don putting in the door to the reservation chapel from the sanctuary, because having that visual connection with our Lord in the church is a wonderful blessing to be able to see, Christ is in this space. Beyond just the imagery that we have with that beautiful cross, having that visible connection to where the body of Christ is powerful for remembering that this is the dwelling place of God, and I come here to encounter Him.
But it also meant putting the focus back to the most important element in the worship space.
The altar is one of the most important elements in the Catholic Church's liturgical spaces. And it should be, and these are the words that the document uses, it should be made of the solid materials, it should be the best that you can make, and it should be approachable from all sides. It's going to be solid stone, taken from the earth in Texas. It'll be Texas limestone. It weighs 15,000 pounds. It'll have relics of a saint placed in the base of that altar, because we have a wonderful tradition in the church of putting relics of saints in things that are used for sacred purposes. So this altar will be dismantled, and the new altar will be placed further into the room. So that'll be our new altar, because the most important element in the Catholic Church's worship space is the altar. That's where the action of making Christ present happens.
And Monsignor Don didn't stop at just making changes to the sanctuary. He set out to inspire the congregation by installing many more works of religious and sacred art throughout the campus. A task picked up by his brother in arts, Father Jason Cargo.
When I arrived in St. Joseph, beautiful thing I saw was the icons of the parish, which was that beautiful icon inspired by Chimbue of the crucifix of our Lord. And then the beautiful images of St. Joseph and the iconography behind the statue of St. Joseph and the statue of St. Mary. One of the things I realized is that the church itself was beautiful. And that artwork actually speaks to the soul of the person, right? So we can actually enter into the mystery of God and His love for us more deeply when we have something beautiful to look at. And that was so evident in the church itself. I kind of looked at the parish and saw, okay, there's an opportunity maybe for some artwork and I thought how cool it would be to be able to walk the halls and be able to see the life of St. Joseph portrayed in the hallways.
The 113 works of religious and sacred art at St. Joseph are, as Father Cargo said in 2021, meant to help us to experience the grace, the love of the goodness of what Jesus won for us. After the renovations to the main sanctuary were completed, Monsignor Fisher announced a project that was the product of several building committee meetings, the Our Dwelling Place campaign, expanding the campus to better serve the needs of a growing parish. Additions to the property would include more meeting rooms, the Forum, a place for parishioners to relax and spend time visiting with each other, a columbarium for the interment of remains, a meditative labyrinth, and, most importantly, a new school.
But one of the things Monsignor Don did when he first came to the parish was to have a big meeting with all the parishioners to take input of what you want the parish to become. And one of the big inputs, which was amazing to me, was they wanted to build a school.
As the kind of girl who always wanted to play house.
My vision and hope for the school is that it continues to grow, most especially in its capacity to create what I've been saying is an experience of the presence of God in their life. What I hope for more than anything else is the children that come here leave here transformed by their experience. There's something amazing about the amount of time that they'll spend on this campus with their teachers in the environment that this community has created for them. And I know it's a very impressionable, formidable time in their life. And so I have great confidence that when we create a community that is truly loving, forgiving, and life-giving, that it truly is an infectious thing for the children. And when they leave here, they'll be truly formed by a faith community that has been truly an instrument through which God has worked in their life.
We find that many of the St. Joseph graduates, we hear back from the high schools that they are leaders. They're leaders in high school and beyond. And I was proud to come in and step foot in here because I knew Monsignor as a child and understood his leadership through all these years. And I know that the pastors have maintained this tradition over here. So that's why I love working here. When I was my first days here as principal, I noticed the kids had different lunches. And so the kids brought in school lunches from their home that were their family meals. And no one was teasing them. And it was all about respect, and I was so impressed with that. And it's still today, 8 years later, that there's a respect of what people eat, different things that they eat, different ways they respect their
their family traditions, right? It's pretty impressive, it really is.
The respect the students of St. Joseph afford each other isn't unique to just the school. From the original 250 mostly Anglo families, St. Joseph had grown to over 7,800 culturally diverse families in 2025. Many of these newer families brought their cultural traditions with them and have enriched the whole parish.
St. Joseph is one of the most diverse parishes. Of course, I'm now in a very diverse parish too, here at Holy Family. But St. Joseph was my first experience of that much diversity, with different cultures in there from different parts of the world, from Africa, from Asia, from North America, South America, all parts of the world. It's just like another United Nations.
There is, in fact, if you come to any service at the church, if you come to any Mass, or if you go into the school, you don't know what country you're in. There is no minority, there is no majority. It's all just a beautiful ethnic mix that we're starting to see in a lot of churches, particularly, our church has been an on-hand experience to accommodate them and to learn from them. And I don't think that's going to go away.
That's why I think I love the festival so much, is to see that all the different cultures coming together, working together, and seeing all that happening out on the field, in the tent. And I just step back and I see all the different cultures working together, talking and visiting each other. To me, that's just absolutely beautiful. Yeah, I like sitting back and watching it happen.
Over the 50 years, St. Joseph has seen its fair share of challenges. Tornadoes, Arctic freezes, leaky roofs, and a decrepit HVAC system, all presenting their own unique challenges to the community. But none of these rose to the unprecedented level that occurred in the spring of 2020.
Good afternoon, St. Joseph Catholic Church. This is Father Jason Cargo, and I've made a return. So I'm so excited. On Sunday, I'll be able to celebrate Mass live stream at 9 a.m. here at St. Joseph, and just excited. Hopefully you'll be able to join me.
I think of how we went through COVID together and the challenge that was, and so many people experienced loss, and so many people experienced the difficulties of that time period, the uniqueness that all of us lived. And that was something that, as a pastor, I worked just as hard during those years as any other time period as a priest. And because I was looking constantly, how am I going to reach out to people and bring the gospel, because they're afraid and they're at home and they're not being nourished, and whatever I can do digitally to reach out to them to help pray.
Oh, the COVID. Oh, I know it. It was hard. It was very, very hard. In fact, Father Jason was our pastor then. Yeah, Father Jason was our pastor then, and he had no choice but do exactly what the diocese said, how we would handle it. So we did, and I think we handled it well. I was just like Isaac and I, like a lot of the other parishioners, were watching Mass on TV. It wasn't like being at church, but I mean, we had no choice. We did what we had to do.
And we were crushed at that time because the church was locked. We couldn't get in the church. We couldn't see each other. We couldn't support each other because of the pandemic. So Father Jesus is the priest I'm talking about, and a staff at church, Otis, and a visiting priest, I don't know where he was from, his Father Delphine. They brought the church to us through Zooming, and so we had Stations of the Cross Zoomed, we had Masses Zoomed, we had adoration of the Blessed Sacrament in the church parking lot. So we could drive up there and actually see each other and begin to get connected again.
Of course, we lost all concept of community at the time, but St. Joseph's, I think, made a great recovery from that. The post-COVID years have been good years for St. Joseph's.
While the community of St. Joseph responded well to the COVID-19 pandemic, a year prior, the parish was rocked to its core. On January 31st of 2019, Bishop Edward Burns directed the diocese to release the names of 31 active and former priests that the diocese had determined were credibly accused of sexual abuse of minors. The community was shocked to see 3 of its former priests on that list.
You know, one of the most difficult things that I experienced at St. Joseph was knowing that there was a lot of people that was deeply hurt by abuse, by people that are supposed to love them, by the priests of the parish. The reality of sexual abuse, clergy sexual abuse, is a horrible thing the church has gone through. And I've worked and helped a number of people who have been, not just at St. Joseph, but at other places, who have been hurt by priests who have not been spiritual fathers, but spiritual robbers.
We were really struggling at that time. I don't recall that we lost any, well, I think we did lose some parishioners, but not the basic core that had been there from the beginning. So we helped each other through it. What it boils down to with the priest's difficulty, because that's not the end of it, I find myself saying, even to a priest who's visiting, or even to Father Stephen while he's there, and it almost sounds disrespectful, but it's the truth. It doesn't matter who is our pastor or who the priests are, we'll always be here. And that sounds kind of selfish, and maybe it is, but it's the truth.
I think that no matter what happens at St. Joseph or at other parishes, number one, we're Catholic. And being Catholic, I believe in my faith, and I think I feel most of our parishioners feel the same way. There's always going to be some that might leave. That's okay for them. But I think the majority of us will always be a community of faith, St. Joseph, and we'll always band together. That's how I feel. We will always band together.
Having met each and every challenge as a faith community, our struggles have reinforced the feeling that we are all in this together.
One of the biggest things that I've learned here, and it was something I knew in theory but have put more and more into practice, is that the work of this parish community does not depend entirely on me. It's easy for especially the pastor of a parish to think that, it's all on my shoulders. It's all about what I'm doing, what I'm not doing. When in fact, the work of Christ in his parish is the work of the entire people, the whole body of Christ. And so relying more and more on the people who are gifted in these areas really helps to increase the ability of our parish to be that great witness to Christ's presence in our community here in Richardson and Garland.
As we reflect on 50 years of faith, love, and community, the stories we've shared remind us of our humble beginnings and the enduring spirit that's carried us through. These stories highlight a journey filled with hope, sacrifice, and resilience, a journey that has made us who we are today. Together, we are much more than a church. We are family, a testament to the enduring power of faith and community. Here's to our next chapter. Happy 50th, St. Joseph.